Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm going to show you the voiceover recording and ADR toolset in the Fairlight page of DaVinci Resolve 17. Let's get started. Here's my project that we're going to work on, and this is a continuation of the Hyperlight project. As you can see, we have a dialogue track on the top and just some drone sounds for now. What we're going to start with is creating a new track. And so I'm just going to right-click in here and create a new track. So go down to Add Tracks. Once the Add Tracks dialog comes up, I'm able to choose where I'd like to place the track, and I'd like it to be just a mono track. Click Add Tracks, and there it is. So I've created a new track where I can put my recording when I'm ready. I'm even going to call this Ada Scratch VO. So that'll just be a scratch voiceover that I'll be recording. Now, one of the things that we'll need to do is we're going to be replacing the sound that's already in there. These light green clips were the ones that were recorded on the set. And if I play through those, you'll hear that's just the voice that we'll be replacing.
Identify the person in front of me.
Emiliana Newton is seated across from me.
Are you sure?
Positive.
So as you can hear, those are just a voice that was recorded for timing that they could use when they were on the set. And now we're going to replace that with a new voiceover recording. Now I could record directly in the timeline right here, or I could even record in a separate track or in a separate timeline. It's just wherever I'd like to go. And so in this case, we'll record it right in this particular timeline, and we're going to use a title to do that. So that's one of the advantages of DaVinci Resolve, is because it's also has a full nonlinear editor built in on the edit page. You can actually create titles that you can use for prompts or for reading out text. And in this case, it's just going to be a simple text title. And in order to see that, I'm just going to go over here up to the View Options menu. And if I turn on my View Options menu, you'll see the very first option in the top left is to show my video tracks. As soon as I do that, you'll see there is my title, and if I select it, that piece of text, and I can enable it the same way as I can enable or disable a clip by just pressing D. And now if you look up in the viewer, you will see there is my text. In fact, if I go to full screen mode, by just pressing P, you'll see that now I can actually see the text right over top of the video, and I can use that to record and just as a prompt. So that's awesome. The next thing I need to do, though, is I want to mute just the voiceover that I'm not using, what I'm going to be replacing, that throwaway voice. And so to do that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit first into the timeline. Remember that anytime you want to zoom horizontally, you want to use, it's going to be based around where your playhead is. So I'll move my playhead over that first clip. If I select the clip, then I just press D for disable, and that's going to mute that clip within the track. Then I can select the next group of those by command selecting them. On a Mac, it'd be control selecting them on a PC, and if I press D, that will disable those as well. I'm going to move down to this last clip, two clips, this one and the one on the end, and then press D and disable those as well. So you can re-enable them anytime by just pressing D. And as you can see, that works with both audio to mute or enable it, and also with the text. I can make that show or hide by just pressing D, which is great. And so now that I've got that set up, I can actually now want to patch this track for recording. So there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of whenever you want to record. First, you need to connect some sort of microphone. In this case, I'm just using a simple USB microphone plugged right into my computer. And then the other thing is you need to arm the track. So you connect it, you patch it to make sure that DaVinci Resolve is recognizing that microphone, and you assign which track it goes to, and then arm it. So I'll show you that right now. First thing is I should probably check my system preferences and make sure that the microphone is indeed showing on my system. So I'm going to go up to my system preferences right here and go down to the sound preferences. Right there's my input, and it shows that this particular microphone, my USB mic, is what is connected right now as the input on my system. That's all I need to know. I can close this up. And as long as it's being seen by my system, we should also see it within DaVinci Resolve. So in order to patch to a track, I'm just going to select the track that I'd like to patch to. And you notice anytime you select a track, it also selects in the mixer, which makes it very easy to see which track you're working with at any given time. I'm going to expand my mixer just a little bit so I can see that better. And then let's look at the top of the mixer. And you'll see at the top of each channel strip, that you'll see the track number and you'll see a section that says input. And this is where you're able to open up the patch input output so that you can actually assign which tracks you want to go to. So I'm just going to click this where it says no input, and this gives me a menu. And where if I choose input from the menu, what that's going to give me is my patch input output, as you can see right here. Automatically, because I did that from within the mixer, the track that I'm trying to patch to is automatically highlighted to make it even easier for me to patch that track. So what I'm going to do is I want to record this microphone, which happens to be a stereo microphone. I only need one channel, so I'm just going to choose that left channel, and I'm going to assign it to this mono track. As you can see, both of them are highlighted, so I can see that they are the ones that I have selected. And then I'll just come down here and click Patch. And once I do that, it will show me that I've patched this microphone to that track and vice versa. So your source and your destination is all you need to set up, and I'm ready to record. When you do record directly into the timeline like we're about to do, it's going to start wherever your playhead happens to be. So in this case, I could start right about here if I wanted to, or I could start at the beginning of the timeline. In this case, I want to start where the text is so I can actually use that as a guide, and then I can just record all of the lines straight through. The last step, though, is I also have to arm the track. And in order to arm the track, you just go to this Arm for Record button right here. And as you can see, that's on your track header. That's this button right here. The R is for record or for arming it in order to record. And if I just click on that, automatically it's now armed. And you can see the microphone level is now coming into this particular track. Okay? At any time, I could then solo it if I only want to hear that track while I'm recording, or I could mute it as well. In this case, I'll solo it so I don't hear any of those other tracks while I'm recording this section. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and come out of Zoom. And then the other thing that you might want to pay attention to is your monitoring when you're recording as well. And so let me just mute this for a second. And I'm going to have you come up to the Fairlight menu. And in the Fairlight menu, you're going to see the input monitoring style. And what the input monitoring style does is that just chooses how you're going to be able to hear the monitoring of whatever you're recording once you have things set up. So at the moment, it's set to auto, which means it will automatically try to play it back for you at whatever stage you are in your recording. But if you look, there's also two other choices here. There's input, record, and repro. And so what those are is it's like having three heads, like in an older tape-to-tape recording or something like that, where you would actually have multiple heads that you could monitor at any time. The first one is input, so that's actually the signal coming in. The record is going to be recording as it's actually being recorded at that moment, so you'll be able to hear that moment of recording. And then the last one, repro, is what you're listening to is once it's playing back the actual recording. All of these are happening right next to each other in line, but that way you can hear the finished recording in repro or record as it's happening. Input is the input. Now, by selecting auto, it's basically going to let you hear it along the way always. Okay. Now, if you hit mute, that just means you're not going to hear anything, and that might be more useful if you have a live microphone and you just don't want to hear it, don't want to be monitoring it, then you can mute that. So I'm going to leave this set to auto. And again, that's in the Fairlight menu. And the Fairlight menu is where you're going to find many things that are very specific for working with audio, or the Fairlight page. So now that I have this set up, I'm going to actually do a recording. Now when I do, you'll see the recording appear right here in this track. One of the things I might want to do is make this script that I'm using a little bit larger. So I'm just going to select that, bring it here so it's right in front of me so I can actually read it very easily, right? And I could even make this larger if I wanted to really see that script. I could even use scrolling text if I wanted to make it more like a teleprompter, but in this case, it's not that much text. So first thing I'll do is I'm going to back this up a little bit and I can just record. I'm not worried about the timing for where it fits in the timeline. I just want to record this right in. And in fact, I could hide my other tracks so I don't have to see anything except for the tracks that I'm actually recording. But I'll do this first one without hiding the other tracks. So let's try it. When I'm ready to record, let me just move this a little bit out of the way. I will need to press this record button right here at the top. As you can see, that's right in my transport controls. Or I could assign a shortcut for recording if I'd like to do that. In this case, I'll just hit record and read through the script one time. Emiliana Newton. Yes. Philip Maida. Philip Maida. I cannot explain this discrepancy. Earth date is March 22nd, 2103. And then I can just press the space bar to stop recording. And as you can see, there's my first recording in the timeline ready to go. I'm actually going to change color of this clip and go ahead and give it a color just randomly. I'll make it, let's say, yellow. And that way I can see it in the timeline. I can even zoom in a little bit if I'd like. And once it's been recorded into timeline, I can also raise the volume level as needed if I like as well. So if we wanted to hear this back, I'll disarm that track for a second and play. Emiliana Newton. Yes. Philip Maida. And as you can see, the recording worked. It wasn't great, but it definitely worked. So let's do another take. And when you want to record additional takes, they record directly on top of the original. So it's not going to cover anything up. It's just going to be recorded as a new layer in the same track. Now, for this one, I'm going to hide the other tracks just to show you that that's another option that we have. And so I will come up here to the index, and right here in the tracks index, I can hide any tracks I don't want to see. So I'll hide my drone, and I'll also hide the upper dialogue. And in fact, if I wanted to, I can even hide the video track if I don't want to see that. Okay, in this case, it doesn't bother me having that video track up there, so I'll leave that part. So there you go. I am now only going to see where I'm recording. I can hide my index again. And so let's just record another take right on top of the one we had, and I will just, everything else will be exactly the same. Let's just record that. So I come over, hit record. Emiliana Newton. Yes. Philip Maida. Philip Maida. I cannot explain this discrepancy. Birth date is March 22nd, 2103. There. And there's my second take, and as you can see, sitting right on top of the other one, and I'm going to go ahead and give that a color as well. I'll make this one orange just to give them a little bit of difference. Now I'm going to record one last piece. We're just going to re-record this middle section where in the script it says, I cannot explain this discrepancy. I'd like to do that as a contraction just because that way the director has a choice if he decides to humanize her a little bit more by letting her talk in contractions instead of just very stiff computer speak. So I will do one more take of just that section, and all I have to do to make that happen is move my playhead to the area where I want to record that. I'll hit record and let's go for it. I cannot explain this discrepancy. So that was, I cannot explain this discrepancy. It wasn't exactly what I was going for, so I'm going to undo that. And let's do it again, this time with the contraction. I'll hit record. I can't explain this discrepancy. There we go. And so now I've recorded all those different takes. Let me give this one a color of its own. Let's make that apricot. And again, whenever I want to color clips or color tracks, remember that right click on your 3-button mouse is how you're going to access those type of features that are just in those contextual menus. So now that I have this set up, let's see what it looks like. I'm going to disarm the track, and let's see what it looks like if I were to see all of the different track layers at the same time. So I go up to the View menu and show audio track layers, which is at the bottom of that view menu. And once I show those, you'll see there's my different takes all sitting on top of each other, ready to go. And I can listen to them. I can choose which one I want to work with, or I could just leave them just like this if that's what I choose. So I'm going to go ahead and hide those audio track layers. We'll talk more about them later. And instead, what I want to do is I'm going to do another type of a take for this. And we're going to do this one more time, only instead of just recording right into my main timeline, this time what I'd like to do is let's record into a different timeline, and we'll actually use the text as the prompt to set up the entire timeline. I'll just show you how that works. So in case you have a piece of text and you want to record your voiceover outside of your timeline, it's super easy to do. Plus, to make this a little bit more interesting, we're also going to record the 2 different channels from this microphone to 2 different tracks so we can set them to different levels. And that way we'll just have a safety take, which will be slightly lower in case the levels get too loud. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to go over to the media pool. Now, something to keep in mind, if you've ever been changing around your interface and you want to put it all back to the default, all you need to do is go to the Workspace menu and choose Reset UI Layout. And as soon as you do that, it will automatically hide any extra panels. It'll reset everything. It will put the viewer back, mixer, everything will go back to the default layout. And then I can just come over here to my media pool and pick up where I left off. In this case, notice that everything is in icon view, which is fine. I can change it to list view if I'd like to anytime by just clicking these buttons right here. So we have icon view or list view by just clicking those buttons. What we're going to do is we're going to come over here to this title for prompt. And the title for prompt is just a title, but you notice it's not showing right now, even though I know it's in there, because I reset my layout, and by default, you're only going to see here in the media pool clips that have audio. And of course, this is a piece of text. So although it's showing up here in my preview player, I can't see it down here in the list. And to see it, I need to make one change. And what that change is going to be is right here in this 3-dot menu, or our options menu. Anytime you see 3 dots on the side of a panel, that means there are more options. And in this case, if I click on that, I want to show all clips. So if I set it to show all clips and then click that, notice now that clip is showing, even though I could already see it, there it is. And if I select it, now I have something I can actually work with, media. Now, of course, this media was created in the edit page. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a timeline from the title by just right-clicking, and you notice the first option that you can see there is create new timeline using selected clips. So I'm going to use that option and just select that. And notice here it's going to give me a timeline. I'll call this VO with safety. Safety meaning a different additional track. Now for this one, I actually want to have 2 different tracks, and I'd like both of them to be mono. So I could have set that up when I first made the timeline, or I could just do that right now. So the track that I have right now, as you can see, this has 2 channels. You can tell there's 2 channels because it shows me at the top. And also you can see the 2 different lanes in there that show you that it's got a left and right channel in it. I'm going to right click and change this track type to mono. And by doing that, I can change the track configuration from stereo to mono, and it's just a right click away. So I'll go ahead and make this mono. As you can see, I have a single mono track now, and I'm going to right click and add one more track, mono, and there it is. So I now have both of those tracks ready to go. Both are mono, and I can make them the same height if I wanted to. Let's name them. Just double click the top one, and this will be Unity voiceover, meaning I'm not going to change the levels. And the second one that I'm going to use will be with safety. So VO with safety. And basically it just means I'll record it at a slightly lower level than the first, just in case we need to have that as a backup. Now, how do I patch it? I have one mic going to 2 different tracks. I can do that easily because this has 2 channels. It's a stereo microphone. If I had 2 different mics coming in through an audio device, or 10 mics coming in through an audio device, I can separate each one easily using this technique to get them to different tracks for input. So what we'll do is this time we'll just go up to the Fairlight menu and choose up here the patch input output. This is where you're able to set up your patching right from in the Fairlight page. And once again, we have only 2 tracks in the entire timeline, so that makes it easy. So we're going to take channel 1 and patch it to my Unity voiceover track, patch. And channel 2 is going to go to the VO with safety and patch. And there we go. So we've now set those up so that they're coming in here. Notice I have my script at the top is showing my prompt automatically because we use that to actually make the timeline. So I've got this set up. Now, how do I actually make the volume level lower on the A2 track? And to do that, I'm selecting the track, is we'll come over here to the mixer, and this is going to be another option that we will be opening up here. Let me just zoom in. And if you notice, it shows that the input is my microphone. And then if I select that for the A2 track, one of the things I can bring up is the path settings. And what the path settings does is it will give you this alternate window, which I'll just show you right here. And this window will show you recording input information for whichever track is selected. Right now it says path settings for the voiceover with safety. If I select the other track, now it's showing me the settings for that particular track, my Unity track. So I'll go back to this one. And this is the track where I want to just lower my recording level by, let's say, 10 decibels just for this example. So all I have to do is lower that recording level, as you can see, right there to -10. And I've got that all set. Now you'll notice while I'm in this path settings that you can choose to arm it for recording right now by just clicking that arm button. So I can toggle on and off arming right now, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and arm this track, and the second track I'll arm it here, and that's it. So now I'll be able to record to the two different inputs. I'm going to just go to the beginning. I have my text prompt. Now I'd like to make this a little bit larger, so I'm going to pop this out, hide my meters, and just make it a little easier for me to see. All right, and we'll just read through this one time so that you can see how I can record with the two different levels. So let me just make sure. I'm going to double check the settings to make sure that the safety settings were the ones that I lowered, and they are. And let's just run through the script once. I'm going to hit record. Emiliana Newton. Yes. Philip Maida. Philip Maida. I cannot explain this discrepancy. The SUT is currently 9543454. And there's my recording. And as you can see, let me go ahead and disarm those tracks. And you can see very clearly, zoom in a little bit, that the levels, recording levels, are different on the two tracks. The lower track was indeed 10 decibels lower. And so that's the way that you can record at two different levels or multiple sources coming into your tracks. So that's it for this voiceover section. Now what I'd like to do is show you how our ADR tools work. We have an entire ADR tool set right here built into DaVinci Resolve. Now, if you're not familiar with ADR, that means automatic dialogue replacement, and that's for replacing specific dialogue, whether it's for dubbing for another language or if it's actual dialogue replacement by the same actors who have to reperform their voices on screen because it was too noisy. That's what it's used for. And the ADR toolset is also great for Foley sound effects if you want to record specific sound effects in sync in timing with the video. So in order to show this, I'll go ahead and put my viewer back, is we're going to come over to the ADR toolset. It's right here, and I can bring that up. But first, actually, I need to open up a different timeline. So I'm going to come over to the timelines and come down and open up my ADR starting timeline. And I'll start my ADR session. And so this is the timeline that we'll be working with for ADR. Before I actually go into that any further, though, I wanted to point out that whenever you record, your recordings are going to your capture location on your system. Wherever you have it set up for in preferences to capture, that's where it's going to go. And in this case, it's also going to record when you're working in Resolve into whatever bin you happen to have selected. So for doing our ADR recordings, I'm going to create a new bin and select it before we start. And that way, all the recordings will be right there in that bin and it'll be a little bit neater and more organized and easier to find. So let's go over here. So I'm going to right click and just create a new bin. There's my new bin, and I'm going to call this ADR session 1. I can label it or color it or leave it as is. In this case, I'll go ahead and color it blue, and you'll see that that will be blue. The bin will be blue, so we can actually see that really easily if I want to grab that at some point. So this is the bin I'm going to be recording my session into. I don't need to look at this anymore. We can go ahead and come right up to our ADR tools. Now, keep in mind, if you don't make a separate bin for your recordings, they'll still be in the media pool. They'll just be in whichever bin you happen to have selected at that time. Now, for our ADR session, let me go ahead and bring up my meters so you can see the video. The idea is that we may need to replace the dialogue. Let's say it was recorded on the boat or near traffic or on an airport tarmac or wherever it was really noisy. That original dialogue recorded on the set is completely unusable, other than to sync and maybe cut together the scene for timing, but now the actors have to come back in and reperform it. So one of the first things you have to do is actually set up your system for ADR recording, and then you can start making a list of your different cues. So where you do your setup is right here on the setup panel. As you can see across the top, in your ADR toolset, you will see that this is where you create your list. Here's where you can record, and of course, this is my setup right here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start here in setup. Again, the ADR toolset, I can turn it on and off anytime by just clicking ADR in the toolbar. And so first thing I need to set up is I need to decide how many seconds of pre-roll I need. Now, pre-roll is how far back the playhead goes before it actually begins recording. And so pre-roll is also when you can set up your timing. So, for example, if you want to count in for your talent so that they will have a chance to, get ready to record, then you might want at least 5 or 6 seconds so that there's time for them to get a count in and then go. Very few people can actually start immediately in sync right when the playhead starts recording. And so we'll come up here to the pre-roll and I'll just set it to 6 seconds. And then the post-roll I can leave at 2 seconds. That means it will roll 2 seconds after the recording. Now, one of the things I need to do is I also have to choose which track I want to record to. Now, I usually have a track selected. In this case, I already created an ADR track, so all I have to do, I don't even have to select it, I just have to know which track I want to go to. Again, for this example, we'll be recording onto this track, so I need to just choose that from the record track. Watch what's going to happen to the record source as soon as I choose a track. So I'm going to choose the ADR track, and as soon as I do, it's going to allow me to automatically choose what my record source is. And when I do that, it will automatically arm that source as well. So let me come over here. I'm going to choose channel 1 for my blue snowball. And as soon as I do that, check out over here, this automatically armed the minute that I chose which source that I wanted. So all the patching is done automatically when you're working with ADR. Okay. So now that I've set that up, I'm going to go ahead and out of that. I'm also going to mute this track or disarm it right now. I just don't want to have to hear any mic feedback right now for this tutorial. So I've got the record source, I have the record track, and if I need a guide track, if there's one particular track I want to hear over the other tracks, then I would choose a guide track. In this case, I'm going to start probably recording with Emiliana, so I may choose that as my guide track. Let's come down here to our character setup. There's Ada and then there's Emiliana, and so what I'm going to do is we need to add another character, add new, and let's choose Philip. And that way all 3 characters in my show are now listed here. Let's come down to the fun stuff, because on this lower section, this is where you can choose all of your audio and video cues. And so you can have streamers and count-ins and the text and everything will be right on screen so that the talent will have that. And all of this is built right into DaVinci Resolve without any additional plugins or anything else. It just works right away. So right here at the bottom, you'll see the first choice I have is to beep to the endpoint. That means there will be a series of beeps up until the point where the endpoint, the beginning of my recording cue, and then it will stop beeping. So we've got that. We have something, the next one down is beep at the endpoint, and that means that's go. The endpoint is when the actor is cued that they have to start talking or should start talking. And so it's important to have both. And so the beep to the endpoint is like your 3, 2, 1, and the beep at the endpoint is your go. Now let's look at the count in. That's another one that we have right here. There's our count in. And what we can do with the count in is that's basically going to tell me how much of a count in the talent actually needs. Any of these settings, you can double click and actually get more information. And as you can see, by double clicking this, it shows count from, in this case, 3 to 0. So it's going to give me a 3, 2, 1, and then go, right? The go will not be a number. And the one thing to keep in mind is all talent is different, right? Some people need a longer count in, then make your pre-roll a little longer and set up a longer count in. In this case, 3 is fine, so we'll just leave it set to 3. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. And let's go down and turn on our video streamer. This is going to be something that's going to give us visuals, so we know 3, 2, 1, and then go. You'll see a flash for go. That's our video streamer. And then we also have right here, let's go down, we have our on-screen cue text style. So I'll just pull out for a second so we can see that. And you notice this is where you can choose what font you're going to be working with and how heavy that font's going to be and also the size. And for this example, I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit larger so we'll really see it. I'll go to like 50 point, somewhere in that ballpark. And just to make it a little bit larger on screen once we start making cues. I can hide that again by just double clicking on it. Now the last one, Smart Timeline, will allow you, if I double click it, you'll see it will have either a moving or a fixed playhead, and it also will auto zoom to the time code area where your cue is as you go, and also to the tracks. So you'll always be seeing whatever it is you're recording on screen, which is helpful. So I'll leave that turned on. And then at the bottom, we also have mixing controls. If you are recording in a studio environment where you have to use talkback and you need to set up different guide track levels and things like that, this is where you would be able to make those changes. So go ahead and turn off my mixing controls for now. And I think I have this all set. So the next thing we're going to do is go over to the list. And on the list panel, this is where you actually set up your list. Okay, this is where you figure out where the cue is, and all you need to do is mark in and out points and type in what the cue is, choose the character, and you're all set. And so I'm right here, I've clicked on list. My playhead is on the first cue that I'm going to use, which happens to be this line of dialogue located between these two pink markers. So if I wanted to solo that track to only hear that for a moment and play it.
Identify the person on the med lab.
Okay, this is Emiliana saying, identify the person on the med lab. There's nothing actually wrong with this to record, but I am going to use this as the example for this exercise. And so one of the things I could do to set up this cue is I could just mark an in and out point anytime I wanted to. By the way, you don't have to solo your tracks either. Is I could set an in point a little bit away from that clip to give it a little bit more room, or I could set it right on the edges of that clip, and that's entirely up to how I want to set up my cues. In this case, I'll use the shift up and down to move from marker to marker, and that will easily make it really easy for me to get to the marker, and then just press I to mark an in point, shift down arrow, and mark out. So I'm using markers for this one to set this cue. If I want to zoom in a little bit more, I could, just so I could see this a little bit better. And this is the one that I'm going to record first. I want to just play from the in to the out point. That's Option and the / directly above it, or Alt /. And just remember, the slash is the one directly above Alt or Option on your keyboard.
Identify the person on the med lab.
Okay, so now I know what the cue is. So if you notice, by setting my in and out points, I can now come over to the controls and just click the button that says New Cue. And as soon as I do that, it's automatically added the cue. Right here is the cue number 1, and that gives me the time code, and I can choose the character, which is Emiliana. There it is. Now the last thing, of course, is I need to put the dialogue line in there, so I'll just select up in this box and type identify the person on the med lab. There we go. And so that first cue is done. Okay, and so at any time, if I want to work with that, it's ready to go. Now I'm going to do one more cue, so I'm just going to clear these in and out points. Now, keep in mind, I'm clearing them to demonstrate how to clear the in and out points, but you can also just set new in and out points, and the ones you have just go away. So it's not pertinent that you have to clear in and out points in order to make new ones. How do I clear those in and out points? The shortcut would be Option X. We'll clear those. And those shortcuts to mark and to remove in and out points is in the Mark menu right here. There's clear in, clear out, and of course mark the clip. Okay. Now for the second cue, I'm going to come over here to the second cue. We're going to do Philip's cue, which is on this line between these two yellow markers. And this time, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Instead of using in and out points to mark this, I'm going to use my range tool. So I'm going to just come up instead of my arrow tool, which as you can see, there's the selection arrow. Instead, I'm going to come over here to the range tool, R for range. And by selecting the range tool, I can just click on this clip and it will automatically select it and mark that range, which is the part I really wanted. I just wanted it to mark that for me. So the clip, I don't need the markers. I could just click that and it automatically set it. Then I'll press A and go back to my arrow tool. And that way I only used range to make a selection. If I want to listen to it, I'll just Option /
Ada, how's that possible? Ada, how's that possible?
Ada, how is that possible? So that's going to be my next cue. And so I'll just come over here and choose New Cue. It will take those in and out points for me, and instead of Emiliana, I'll change that to Philip. And I'll type in the text, Ada, how is that possible? Okay, and there. So I've now set up my two different cues. Now, obviously, I could go down here really easily and mark cues for the entire scene. You can also have someone else make the cues, an assistant, or even you could do it on another system as long as it has DaVinci Resolve, and then you can export it and just bring it into here. So it's very useful. Someone could be on a laptop going through, making all the cues, even on the set or wherever they happen to be in the dialogue editing suite. They could be making the cues, setting it all up, and then you can come into your recording studio to actually make the recordings, just import that cue list. So I'll show you how to do a recording. So now that I've set this up, I can clear those in and out points. Again, I'll just hit Option X to clear those. And let's just record the first cue to show you how that works, or practice it and then record it. So I'm going to come up here. Instead of looking at the list, we're going to go over to Record. What you're going to see is some different options based on what's in your cue list. So I'm going to select the first cue, and as soon as I do this, all of these different controls come to life. The first one is my rehearsal. This will allow me to rehearse my cue. I can play back cues that have already been recorded, and here's my actual record button. Okay? And so for starters, what I'm going to do is just rehearse one of these. And to make this more interesting, I'll rehearse this one with full screen so that you can actually see it and see the text at the same time. So I'll just go into full screen mode. I'm going to press P, or you could do Command F. There it is. That's what I'm going to use. But first, I'll click the button to rehearse. There we go.
A, to identify the person I'm speaking with.
Philip Maida.
Identify the person on the med lab. And as you can see, I got my cues. I was able to see the text very easily, and that's what we had just set up when we were doing the setup page. And there you could see everything in action, including the beeps, where you could hear the 3, 2, 1, and go. So I'm going to actually record one. Let's try it. I'll just come over here and click the record button. You'll see it actually happen on the set. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Don't need my meters. Just change my real estate a little. And let's try this one. So I'm going to go ahead and click record.
A, to identify the person I'm speaking with.
Philip Maida.
Identify the person on the med lab.
Philip Maida.
Okay. And in theory, it just recorded that take, and I can see it right there in my timeline. Now you notice that I was a little late. Okay, this isn't what I normally do. So I was a little bit off on my timing, and notice that it kind of cut off because I didn't have enough time, didn't finish that recording. And so in cases like that, we have things built in to be able to work around your cues. In this case, there's a button right there on the record panel that says keep recording. If I turn that on, that means it will record beyond the end of the cue in case you're like me and don't quite hit your mark, and then what will happen is it will just record a little bit more until I press the space bar to stop. So let's do another take just so you can see that in action. I'll come over here and click record.
A, to identify the person I'm speaking with.
Philip Maida.
Identify the person on the med lab.
Philip.
There. And as you can see, I have this set up, and I can now extend this, and I actually got it right. Now, it may not be in sync, and in fact, if I look at these two takes, the original, and if I look at the one I recorded, you can see that I was off a bit, but I could also just go over there and move it, right, and try to move that into position at any time. So I do have that option. Now, one of the things that we can do, I can also trim it, by the way, if I need to, is as long as I'm in a recording session, which I'm doing right now, I've done 2 whole takes, is I have the ability to come over into my list and look at those different takes and listen to those takes, even though they're in different layers. So, for example, right now you can see that there's 2. I'm going to show my audio track layers under the View menu. So you can see those. And when you see the layers, you can notice there's my 2 different takes right there in layers that I can see. I can have 10 takes or 20 takes within the same track if I wanted to. All of them would show up as a layer within that track. And if I want to play it, let's say I want to go back and preview one of these. Take 1, for example. If I press play, watch what happens. It will actually hide the other take and only let me see that one so I can tell which one I'm working with. I'll just go ahead and show you.
A, to identify the person I'm speaking with.
Philip Maida.
And for this, I'm going to put this back so you can see it better. And I also think I will fix my playhead. And by fixing the playhead, it will scroll underneath it, which should make it a little bit easier for you to see. Let's do that. There we go. And let's just play that one through.
A, to identify the person I'm speaking with.
Philip Maida.
Identify the person on the
And
map.
as you can see, it hid that as long as I was doing my preview. Now let me try the other one. I want to see take 2. Watch that take 1 will disappear when I do that. So I'm also going to do this one more time. Zoom out a little bit so you'll see it and you'll watch. 1 will disappear. Watching.
Ada, identify the person I'm speaking with.
Philip Maida.
Identify the person on the med lab.
Just showing it will recognize those. I can even star them. I can say, well, this one was better. I can give it maybe a 2-star and this one gets no stars. But you get the general idea on how that all works. You could then see and hear all of those different elements that we were working with in the timeline. Let me hide my audio track layers under the view menu. There we go. And of course, those are my different takes. Okay, so it's very easy to work with our ADR tools. In fact, I'm going to show you, I'm going to bring in an entire list for you. One other thing I want to point out too is that you heard those beeps. In order for us to hear those beeps, those had to be actually set up and patched, which I'll also show you. But first, let me show you how to bring in a list. So I'm going to come up here to the 3-dot menu right there at the top. That's our options menu. And if you look in that options menu, if I click on it, one of my choices is going to be import queue list. As you can see, import to queue list, or you can export the queue list. So if I was on a laptop and I just created all those queues, I just export it and it's going to come out as a CSV file, comma separated variable file that you can use on any spreadsheet program and then bring it in. Okay, so we're going to import a queue list and I'm just going to go to my desktop and find the media. There it is. And here's the file that we're going to be working with, this ADR text file. I select it, click open, and there is the list. And if you notice, inside of this window right here for my setup, before I actually import it in, it's going to give me the option to make sure that my columns are actually correct. So in case you have an assistant or someone making your variables and setting it up, or you have someone creating all your queues and they give them to you in the wrong order, and the out point is where character is and so on, you can swap those around right here. I'm going to click Import CSV, and there it is. This just populated with the entire text for the scene in seconds, right? And so once I've done that, my old recording session is gone, and now I have all of these cues ready to go. So very easy to work with. I could go to list, and you can see there's all those cues that I just brought in. And to make your recording even easier, you can come up here and sort by cues. So if you happen to be working with one actor coming in to read their cues, instead of seeing everything in a list, you can just come over here, zoom in a little bit on that. And you can see if I come into this menu, I can choose which characters I'm going to see. So if I only want to see Philip, then I do that. And now I'm only going to see Philip's dialogue for his recording session. All of his cues. I could show everybody if I choose. So very easy to work with this, and it takes no time at all to set it up, as you can see. And then once you're done, you have the tools that you need to be able to then edit this, do your dialogue editing, and work this right into your program or your dialogue for fixing. And as I mentioned before, you can also use this for Foley. Now, one thing that's very useful is that you can also use our elastic wave to stretch or change the waveform to make sure that it matches the original even better than what you had before. And so that would be one extra thing that you could do. If I look at this and say, well, those actually line up pretty well, but if I wanted to make a modification to those, I can just right-click and choose Elastic Wave from the menu. And once I do that, let me make this a little bit bigger. Here we go, you can really see that. And so now I can actually stretch this and decide, okay, I want to make it longer or shorter. I can really adjust to make sure that it fits timing-wise to this clip. I can nudge it over a little bit and try to match it as best as I can. I can even go in there and not only stretch the entire thing, but I can also go in there and finesse the levels even more by just pressing Command and clicking right about here if I want to add a time keyframe right there, as you can see, or a time marker, and that's basically going to let me make adjustments to it from within, which is great. I can also do another one over here to just adjust the back end. This will never change the pitch, and so that just gives me the ability to finesse these two to make them match up a little bit better.
Identify the person on the med lab.
for your work. So this is working with ADR. Before I sign out from recording though, I do want to show you how to set up those beeps just in case you want to have the beep tracks. In order to have those, the track has already been created here at the bottom at ADR beeps, but that was a track I actually created. It takes 2 seconds to make a new track, and then you just need to patch it to our built-in system generator, and that will allow you to generate the beeps. So I'll just show you how that's set up. Selecting the track, I will come over here, and there's the track right here. You'll notice at the top it shows that it is patched to the beeps. And if I open this up and see the input, as you can see the beeps track, I want to see what it's patched to. It's patched to our system generator. Right there, system generator. And that you can find in the audio inputs, the system generator. And what that does is allows you to use our oscillator, which gives different sounds, noise, built-in white or pink, and then of course we have our ADR beep. Okay, so that's what you're going to be looking for, was the beeps. And as soon as you patch those to a track, then they will be triggered by the ADR system. Now there's one other thing you have to consider when you're using that, is it also has to be set up in through mode so that it is a live mic that's constantly setting off a beep that can be toggled on and off, similar to what you would do with TalkBack, where you push a button and you're talking, when you release you're not, but that mic's always hot. It's just when we actually engage it. And so how to do that is we'll just come over to those path settings that you saw before. The path setting for your beeps, you'll see, are set to through mode. If they're not set to through mode, the beeps will not work. If they're set to record mode, then it's just like recording a track, and again, those aren't going to work. It needs to be set to through mode, and you can have one or the other. Through mode is for recording. It's just an open mic, right? It's just going to be set to through mode. The sound is passing through, and that way the ADR can access that. So there you have it. You've now seen the voiceover recording, you've seen how to set up your different tracks, and our full ADR toolset right here in DaVinci Resolve 17. Thank you for watching.